Chubstep.
Creating the oil of Goku.
Steed.
Chub. Step.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the king of the jungle.
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
He's a good man, your sheriff. And he's gonna keep on sheriffing. Same as you all are gonna keep doing whatever it is you do. Barbers cut hair, cooks cook, librarians keep checking out books because it's very important to read.
What happens when Bible camp opens?
Bible camp's canceled, and I'm not really doing questions and answers right now, dear.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
All right, the show started.
Hello, hello, hello.
We have a very special guest for the first time. Chubstep Jack, the expert in Harry Potter lore. All
Thank
things
you.
Harry
Yes,
Potter.
I appreciate that. And yes, I'm a longtime subscriber. So I'm familiar with Chubstep. I don't know if I would say I'm an expert, but I have read the books very many times. I would say the first 4 books I've probably read close to 10, and then the whole series I've probably read around 5. And the reason Jared asked me on today is because recently we were out to dinner. I was talking, and I love the books. I love the Harry Potter books so much. But as you read them that many times, you just notice certain things that start to jump out at you and be like, hey, J.K. Rowling, you are great. But maybe there's a few things in here that don't quite make as much sense as you would have hoped. And those were some things we got to talking to. And Jared right away told me, he's like, I'm not an expert in this stuff, but I know someone who might be interested in having this discussion.
Yes, and that's Steve. So this episode is going to be themed around Harry Potter. If you're not a Harry Potter fan, then maybe skip this episode.
No, no. Leave it on.
But I'll also leave it on to give us the.
But just like pull your headphones off.
Yeah, just mute the episode and then finish it.
Yeah,
I did have that fear when you asked me to come on of potentially alienating some Chubaholics that weren't Harry Potter fans, but most of the world is. And you just got to hope that maybe, even if they aren't, maybe this could be something where they come around and they really start to think like, oh, maybe this Harry Potter stuff, I don't know. Maybe I should give it a try. So
give it a read.
We just want critical thinking. That's what we want on this podcast.
I have not read the books in, I don't know, like 8 to 10 years. It's been that long for me. But for a while, I did listen to a Harry Potter podcast. But they kind of ran out of content because the books have been out for a while.
Shocking.
And that's the difference between that podcast and Chubstep, which never really run out of content.
Absolutely not. I got, I got hybrid animals on deck because, some stingray got impregnated by a shark. Big news.
Spoilers, dude.
That's coming up next week.
Yeah,
I actually did read about that and talk about magic, but
Good segue, Jack. Good segue.
Yeah, that was good. Give him a big
if you want, Steve, we can get into some of these things. And Jared said you were open to debate. Some of these things are just things that have, again, come to my mind after reading the books very many times. And I think perhaps overanalyze, when you've read them so many times, you can really start to think about some of the smaller details. Yeah. And some of the things you said you might want to debate. Some of them I think you're just going to have to agree with because there won't be a debate. But they're mostly focused on the books. So you said you haven't read them in a while, but if you have read them or if other people, because in my opinion, the movie, there's so many, they're movies to books. There's so many things they leave out and so many plot holes that could be a whole nother discussion. But most of the points I have are focused on the books.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm not a big movie fan, actually.
Me neither.
And the name of the segment is Harry Plot Holes.
Oh. That sounds like a movie I watched in bed at 2 a.m. last night.
Yeah.
Because of the implication.
A little different.
So if we can start it off, again, some of these things are plot holes. Some of the things I just have a minor issue with, but I'll start with some of the bigger plot holes I'll see. And I'll start with the number one. So if we look back to the third book, it's revealed that Ron the whole time's rat has been actually a human man that has been living with them the whole time. It's a great twist. It's out of nowhere. But his brothers this entire time had a map that showed him the name and place of everyone in the school, and never once noticed that there was a man, Peter Pettigrew, that was seemingly walking everywhere and in bed with their brother almost every single day. And that they never noticed that or brought that up or thought it was maybe strange when they had a map where they could see everyone in the school, I thought was a bit interesting.
Yes. That is a great point.
Thank you.
Okay, so while that's valid, you are forgetting the fact that Peter Pettigrew was aware of the Marauders map from his days with the creators of the original Marauders map.
Yeah.
So it's possible that he did some type of counter spell to this to have himself be left off of said map.
Okay. I mean, that while I guess that is possible, I don't know when he could have done that when he was living as a rat, but I guess it is plausible that he could have gotten access to the map while living with the Weasley family and somehow maybe could have done that. They never depicted him as being very bright. So it seems unlikely, but I guess that could potentially be possible since he was there when the map was created. So that is, I don't think likely, but I would say that is something that maybe
but never explained to your point, Jack.
Never explained, but he did have
it was never
somewhat
explained.
of a valid rebuttal.
And to your point, I'm pretty sure that they notice him on the map later on. Maybe like book 5 or 6. They're like, Peter Pettigrew or something.
Yeah. And he was he was never there. So that I think is one of the most obvious ones that I think a lot of people have noticed before. But that's just something that I think is kind of absurd. And should have been addressed.
And you saying him not being very bright, Jack, I think anybody that would choose to live as a rat chooses to live a simple lifestyle.
This was deep espionage, Jared.
I'm just
Lord
saying,
Voldemort was behind it.
He was also afraid. He was very afraid. He was a cowardly man, and the only way he knew to survive was as a rat because he had faked his own death, Jared, and that's why he turned himself into a rat because he was afraid.
That's fair. That's fair.
This is the weasel. He should have been a weasel. That's what
he really is. This is another one that is just strange to me. It's not really a plot hole, but I just find it a bit strange. Why in the Wizarding world do they celebrate the same Catholic holidays that we would do perhaps in the rest of the world? You'd think that, the origins of Christmas wouldn't be something that would be important to them. Other things like that, like Halloween, like why are they celebrating these types of things in the Wizarding world?
So actually in the Wizarding world, they don't celebrate Christmas. They celebrate the before Christmas tradition of Yule. It is actually a Yule festival in Yule time. And that's the pagan festival predating Christianity.
Are you certain of that?
I'm certain.
You're certain they never say Christmas?
The Yule Ball. Are you familiar with the Yule Ball where Victor Crumb makes a move on Hermione Granger?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
That was the Yule Ball, not the Christmas ball.
What about when they open presents when they wake up in the morning on Christmas Day?
That's a classic Yule time thing.
All right. So you're 2 for 2 right now. So I'm very impressed.
Well, Jack, so you're saying they definitely mentioned Christmas at some point?
I don't think that they do. I think it's all Yule.
I don't know. I don't really think that they're saying Yule all the time. I don't have the book in front of me
for Yule time break.
I don't feel like that. Yeah, I feel so. I'm not sure on that, but again, it's a plausible excuse, perhaps.
Okay.
Again, I don't know if I've ever come up against a mind quite like this. So some of these
Yeah.
rebuttals I am not prepared for.
I mean, so like when Jack was telling me about this one the other day, I was bringing up to him that I was watching Hunger Games. And in that they were saying like, oh, this train's traveling at like 200 miles an hour. And something like like, oh, interesting that they use our unit of measure in the Hunger Games world.
The Hunger Games is based on America, though. What are they just gonna make up some fancy?
Is it supposed to be in America? It's supposed to be.
I think it's like America.
Is that ever explained that it's just like in the future in America? I don't know if there's that backstory.
I don't know.
It seems like in a completely different world. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Maybe you're right, but
I
they
just
also. What else are they gonna?
Well, I know. I'm just saying, like, if you watch sci-fi movies and stuff or fancy movies, it's always like, oh, how they use feet and inches or the temperature, right? Like they'll use our units of measure, but like those are based on things that were developed for our Earth. And it really is, like it's just a silly thing. But like to your point, Jack, like people understand. You mean Paul's a big Yule guy. He doesn't celebrate Christmas, but
No, never have.
a lot of people, celebrate Christmas. So it's just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's what people do in the winter, even if they're not. It really doesn't relate.
And to your point, Jared, I understand why things do that because they do want things to be more relatable to the reader. So they don't want everything to be so obscure that you're trying to figure out these details more than you're able to focus on the story. But for my next one here, Paul, I have more of a deep cut. So this is for the true Potterheads. But if you remember in the fourth book when Harry and Voldemort duel, and Harry eventually forces Voldemort's wand to regurgitate the past spells that it has completed. Do you remember that? So when that happens, the spells come out of Voldemort's wand. They're supposed to be coming out in the reverse order of what they were cast.
Okay.
Now, how this happens in the book is very confusing because the first thing that comes out is like the hand, Cedric Diggory, the hand, and then in the books, it says many times that he killed Harry's dad first and then killed Harry's mom while Harry's mom was sitting over her. Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. They come out of his wand in the wrong order. It should have been his mom coming out of the wand first and then his dad. And in the books, his dad comes out of the wand first and then his mom, which is not consistent with the order that they were killed in by the wand.
Now, reverse order. So first one out of the wand.
The last spells, the most recent spells that were cast were the ones that were supposed to be coming out first.
So it would be his mom.
Should have come out first, correct.
And instead his dad came out first.
Correct.
This is going to be a tough one to get J.K. Rowling's back on, but there is a way this is possible. Men are stronger than women.
Okay.
And he just held on to life a little bit longer.
Oh, so you so
yeah, the instant death spell, he just shook that off for about 3 to 4 minutes.
So let's say
no, I'm with you on this one.
Okay. So there we go. I knew there were some that you wouldn't be able to argue. That one just doesn't make sense. And that was just, I think, a mistake.
That could be an oversight. Yeah. There's no other way around it other than they'd have to release a whole new movie all about Voldemort killing Harry's parents, like Batman or something.
Yeah. And again, the way that it's told many times is that his mom died second because she was protecting him, but we'll leave that there.
Yeah.
The next one I'd like to bring up, do you remember in the third book that Hermione took a very busy schedule of classes? And Jared, for those that don't know, Hermione is brilliant. She took an overloaded schedule. So in college, I would say it was essentially equivalent of her taking 36 credits this semester, right? Over the top. And to accomplish this, they gave her a time turner device, which essentially allowed her to turn back the hands of time, go back, and go to these classes twice. That they said was this extremely dangerous device that has so many implications, that so many things that can go wrong. But you can essentially change things that happen in time and go back and change things. And they gave it to a 13-year-old so she could go to more classes. And then while all of these disasters are going on throughout the books and people are dying and Voldemort's coming back, they never think like, hey, maybe this thing might be useful to use for something that's maybe a little more important than this child getting to herbology class on time.
Yeah. So, I mean, the rules around using those, I mean, there's a lot of rules. The Ministry of Magic heavily, they restrict the use of those. Ethically, I don't think you could go back and, change things. Because if you change that thing, then something else bad could happen. But all she's doing for using it is learning.
So that is a more important use of that type of magic than saving someone's life?
I'm not saying it's more important. I'm saying ethically.
Paul's a big ethics guy, Jack.
Ethically, all she's doing is reading books. But, if you go back in time and you step on a butterfly, the Titanic might not have sank.
100%. I 100% agree with that, right? You don't step on that butterfly, or you do, who knows what could have changed? So then I guess my bigger problem is, hey, maybe ethically we don't want to go back to change time or save people's lives who died. But then maybe we also don't give this to a preteen girl who wants to take an extra history of magic class.
Yeah, and she does pretty quickly misuse it. Like first year she has it, she's like was waiting for the opportunity. She's like, all right, guys, I got a way out of this shit. We're gonna time.
Yeah. And Jack, to your point, it's like ethically or not, like she could have. You would think if somebody like you care about has died, you're not really caring about the ethics of it. Yeah, you're not thinking of the ethics of it. It was pretty clearly just forgotten about it in some of the writing of this.
Well, they do smash them in a later book. Like all the rest of the time turners, they just like destroy them because they cover up that plot hole.
They could make
that would probably.
They could have made another one, or I'm gonna go one more major thing I have, Paul, and then we can go kind of rapid fire, just some issues I have, and we can go over those quick. This is one more deep cut. Let's say this is my last real deep one, and then we'll get over some of these to the more surface ones. But in the 5th book, do you remember that Harry was very desperate to talk to Sirius a couple of times and was breaking into Dolores Umbridge's office to use the fire?
Yeah.
Which eventually has led to him getting caught there multiple times, getting detentions, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Before he went to school for his 5th year, Sirius gave him a 2-way mirror that would allow him to talk to him through the other mirror, and he just never used it. He just forgot he had it.
I can't remember what they did with the mirror.
He tried to use the mirror after Sirius was dead. All of the time when he was alive, he didn't use it. And again, Jared, for those that might not know, there was essentially a militant disciplinarian running the school who was doing medieval punishments to these children. And he was desperate to talk to his godfather, who he had a 2-way mirror, which essentially would be doing the same thing that we're doing right now. And instead of using that, he broke into her office every time to communicate with him and just forgot that he had the mirror until Sirius died. And then he said, oh, now let me try this now that he's dead. It didn't work because he was dead.
So I think that Sirius was distancing himself from Harry in that book, if I remember correctly. And I think this may have been on Dumbledore's orders to distance himself, because I can't remember exactly what was going on, but he wanted Sirius to distance himself from Harry. And I think he may have tried to use the mirror, and Sirius didn't reply.
He never tries to use a mirror.
He never tries to use it at all.
Not
was
until
it confiscated? Did Dolores maybe take this?
No, he had it in his suitcase the entire time.
Because you've probably had this thought, Jack, and then reread the book after you had this plot hole, right? These are not ones on your most recent read through. So no. You've gone through and double checked that. Yeah.
The only thing I haven't double checked is the Christmas versus Yule. But besides for that,
I'm pretty sure that's Yule.
That's the only one where I'm not sure.
I guess you need another read through. You need another read through.
Yeah.
And Douglas Fletcher, he smashed the mirror. Let's see.
Yeah, he did smash it because he was a bit cranky, and he was a bit cranky at Sirius before he left. He was going through a very moody stage in the fifth book, but that still doesn't explain how he completely forgot about it and thought the risky methods that he took were the better option.
Yep. I'm seeing he should have used it instead of Umbridge's fire.
Okay.
Some
So
people
again,
are
we're on the
pissed.
same page for that. I told you, Jared, I told you there were going to be a couple things where he was going to have to agree.
That's
You're
a
right.
tough one because I think that Sirius was intentionally ignoring him for something, but
Well, they didn't leave in the best terms because, again, Harry was going through a bit of a growing up phase in that book.
yeah, this was like some of the long hair movies.
Yeah. But now, Jared, we'll go through some more rapid fire ones. These anyone could understand. It's just a little bit confusing. Steve, I'd like you to explain this one the best you can, or hopefully you'd agree with me. Quidditch scoring is the most ridiculous thing in the world. Quidditch was this close to being the greatest sport that ever existed. This close. And then they made the scoring something that made no sense.
You don't like the snitch system.
Yeah, of course not.
I respect the snitch system, but it does put way too much pressure on the seeker.
Most of them could just not play at all, and the result of the games would be the same.
Most of them, but you're forgetting about Victor Crumb actually caught the snitch to avoid embarrassment for his team. He just ended it.
And
so that's just the Chasers winning the game right there. So bad. They're winning so overpowered that Crumb is like, screw this. I'm getting my boys out of here.
Jack, can you remind people what the scoring system is? Because I know
of course
ends the game and it's
Quidditch,
worth a certain amount of points.
Yeah, in Quidditch, they have a very cool system of essentially chasers that throw a ball back and forth and try and score it between 3 rings. Every goal they score is worth 10 points. Okay. There's also 2 players who are beaters who can knock these large balls to try and throw them off course or play defense. And there's also a goalie. The snitch and the keeper works like this. If you catch the snitch, you automatically score 150 points and the game ends.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those goals, you could get up 10-0, you're up 100-0, and then the other team's seeker, which is the position that Harry plays, catches the snitch, and you get 150 points. The game's over.
The game only ends when the snitch is caught as well.
Exactly.
So Jared, as someone you're an avid sportsman.
Yeah.
Does that seem to make a lot of sense?
No, this always bothered me as well with the Quidditch scoring. And I've also seen, if I remember right, for when they played Quidditch in like the college schools that play Quidditch, isn't there somebody just dressed up like in all gold that runs around?
Yeah, they play tag with them. Yes.
Jeez. They got to get a better system for that.
The problem, okay, because the guy that I actually originally started this show with, a guy named Craig, when Chubstep was or it wasn't even Chubstep, when we did a radio show back at Marquette, he played on the Quidditch team. And the problem with Quidditch is you have to run around with a broom underneath your legs.
Well, in real life, you would be flying.
And that's the thing. The cool part about it is the flying part.
Yes.
Yeah.
It looks a little more ridiculous when you're running around with the broom between your legs.
I mean, now we got like jetpacks and drones and shit. We got to figure something out there.
Yeah, it was a little hard for me to watch.
Because if Quidditch actually was a game, that would be awesome.
Oh, amazing. Again, if you just play it with the goals and get rid of the snitch.
What's a fair score, Jack, for the snitch? What's a fair score? 50?
If you wanted to keep the snitch system in play, I would say you could potentially have to be 50.
Yeah.
Well, that's still going to do the same thing. You get an early snitch catch, you win the game.
Yeah, but I think that's a lot more fair than 150.
I think 150 is okay. 10 goals, I mean, look, I imagine myself as a pretty proficient chaser. Like, that would have been my position. I'm going loop-de-loop. I'm going under the hoop. You know, I'm spinning around. I could put down 10 goals easy. And that, like, gets my team in it. I score, maybe my teammates get 5 more because I pass it once in a while. 150, we're good.
So here's what I'm going to say. I think that J.K. Rowling pretty quickly realized that she had made an error in the scoring system, which is why in almost every match that they play, something so ridiculous and absurd happens. And it's great to read. It's great storytelling. But almost every Quidditch match Harry plays in, or even the World Cup match, something so absurd happens because that's the only way that's the only way that this sport makes sense is if something so crazy happens that like it keeps you engaged. Otherwise, it would be like, yeah, why are we doing all this stuff? They're just going to catch and snitch. So, again, Jared, in the books, there's very many entertaining Quidditch matches, but it's because like someone in the crowd is cursing Harry's broom, or Dementors show up, or Harry falls off, or there's things like that.
Things always interrupt the game in some weird way.
Yes. And again, if you take Quidditch and you just have it be like, hey, you three are trying to score. You two are hitting these flying bowling balls at their heads to try and knock them off their brooms with a goalie. You shoot it between these hoops that are 100 feet in the air. That's already pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, I think that maybe there's a separate league or something. There's the classic league, and then
I could see that.
add a non-seeker league.
Yeah, like they do that with rugby, like rugby sevens. I can see that. Different versions of Quidditch, I think, would be really fun. Okay, I'm going to go into some other quick ones that just bug me. How come, Steve, none of the staff at Hogwarts, and I told Jared this, none of the staff at Hogwarts are married?
Oh, good point.
Just odd.
That is a little odd.
Yeah,
what are they? They're diddling out there?
I didn't say you did, but just odd.
Let's hope not.
That's very odd.
Yeah, it's just odd. Along the same line, why are Harry's wizarding grandparents never mentioned?
They're probably dead.
Okay. But
Lily,
don't you think, because they would have had to die pretty young for grandparents then, because his parents were young when they died.
Probably tuberculosis got him.
Perhaps, but it just would have been interesting to mention.
Yeah, to not have one grandparent still around.
Yeah.
Well, Jared, he might have his ones on the other side, but they kind of were separate. They were.
That's fair. Okay, that's valid. Okay.
Yeah, on Lily's side, they would have been normal.
But so they might have been alive. They didn't mention them. That makes sense. But I think it would have been somewhat interesting to hear a little bit more about his dad's family, especially because they made him seem like he was rich and a well-known family. But then they never really.
They could have been killed in the whole Voldemort deal.
They could have, but don't you think that would have been an interesting note to put in the book?
Yeah, maybe even like a newspaper clipping. Harry stumbles upon.
Maybe even a newspaper clipping.
Or like just a picture of them, and he's like, "Oh, I miss them."
Well, he never met them.
Well, he wouldn't have. Yeah, you're right. It's a good point. He wouldn't have. Yeah. I could imagine I would miss them.
I'm assuming they're dead.
He does talk a lot like he, not to get morbid, but he does talk a lot like he misses his parents. Where it's like, he
whines about it for 7 books straight.
Yeah, and his only life that he knows is not having them. So it's, again, that is sad. I don't want to say that that's not sad, but he doesn't know any life with them. So I think it's interesting that he acts like he misses them so much all the time when he's never even met them.
Hey, it turns out you can do fucking magic and you get to go live in a castle. Pretty sweet life, dude. I would be fist pumping the air every day when I woke up. I'm not going to be moping around about some Voldemort guy trying to, murder me.
No, and I think we both agree, Steve, that none of them even use magic for as cool. Like, they should be even using more magic than they are. They should be using magic so much, crazy, because
I'm not lifting another item other than my wand for the rest of my life.
No. Last thing, and I guess this is in between, but Jared, I'll explain this for you. In the final book, there's a long period of time where Harry, Ron, and Hermione are kind of isolated. They're out in the woods. They're hungry. They're cold. They're on their own. And a big part of this is they're hungry. They have nothing to eat. And one of the rules for Transfiguration, Jared, is that you can't turn something into food. But you can multiply food or make it bigger, but you can't just turn nothing into food. But they are able to turn things into animals. So why wouldn't they just turn a piece of wood into an animal, and then a pig, and then eat it? Or chicken?
There's probably some limitations on that spell there.
You think you cut into the chicken and then it's wood again?
I think it would, yeah, have the same nutritional value as wood. There's-
The same nutritional value.
Yeah.
That's how yeah, that's the limitation.
Like, look, I'm not like I didn't get the studies. I didn't go to get my transfiguration class studies in, but I would assume that there's, some guy who did the research and he had the Bunsen burners out and getting the calorie content and stuff, and he's like, guys, it's still wood. We messed up. We can't solve world hunger. Sorry.
Maybe so. Maybe it would still have the nutritional value of rock or wood or something like that. But I just thought maybe why not try, or maybe not mention why they couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Again, similar to the magic, like that, there's any discomfort like that, you're cold. Oh, I'm cold. Like you can make a fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, instantly.
Yeah.
So some of those things when they were like so uncomfortable, they're living in the woods. I'm like, okay, well, you could probably figure something. Again, by this point they were almost full grown wizards. Like,
yeah.
We're cold, we're shivering. Like, transfigure a tree into a lazy boy,
A hot tub.
Yeah,
and relax.
Well, they had
Yeah,
a magic
hot tub.
tent
Relax.
they were living in too.
Yes.
That they didn't even have to pitch themselves. They just used magic to set it up. And there's a very simple charm, incendio, which lights things on fire.
Exactly. So some of their complaints about being cold and hungry, I'm like, these problems seem like they could be easily solved.
I would have Accio a hot tub into the tent, and bam, I'm warm.
Yeah, or a hot dog or something.
Yeah, just Accio hot dog, and then you just
Jared,
wait.
for those that don't know, that's the summoning spell.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Harry Potter uses it to summon his broom for the Triwizarding games, and he gets a dragon egg using the Accio spell.
He doesn't
So
summon
they
Jared.
prove that
He
the
doesn't
range,
summon the egg, but he flies his broom until he can get the egg.
Yeah, he summons his broom. So the range on that spell is big. So you could definitely summon a hot dog out of somebody's hand.
Yes.
You're in a forest of mushrooms. There's got to be mushrooms around.
You don't want to identify it. I mean, that's too much.
Just try it, right? What's the worst can happen? It's just a mushroom.
Again, talk about magic. But and then Steve, I just had a couple questions for you as Harry Potter fan to Harry Potter fan, if that's okay, quickly.
Yeah.
Who would you say is the most underrated character throughout the series, either in their importance or entertainment value?
Oh man, underrated. I know there's a lot of overrated people. Trying to think of a good one, because easy answer there is Neville.
Of course, yeah, it's an easy answer.
I was like Dean and Seamus, those two side characters in Gryffindor that were always just hanging around, and they're just stand-up dudes that just hang out. I was like, yeah, those are always my favorite guys when they're just hey, these two just bros are they're just doing silly stuff over here
in the movies.
Yeah,
I actually think a little bit Fred and George are slightly undervalued for their entertainment value and their talent as wizards.
Yeah, they're good. They were some of my favorite characters in the books, just because they're always they're just doing magic. There's one line where they say Fred or George would go into town and pick up chicks with magic tricks, card magic tricks, but he's doing actual magic. I was like, see, he gets it. He gets how to use this.
Jay, these two did not give a fuck. And somehow also they seem to always be doing magic even when they were too young to be allowed to be doing it, and they just no one they'd never got in trouble. They were kind of bad boys.
Mm-hmm.
And that they would go pick up girls just doing real magic and pick up non-magical girls or muggles using it. I mean,
then they would they just obliviate them afterwards.
Oh boy,
Jared, you get that right? That was a bad one. Yeah. Nobody looked that up.
Now, do you have a clear favorite book, and also a least favorite book?
Order of the Phoenix, probably my favorite book. Least favorite. Prisoner of Azkaban or Goblet of Fire?
Jared, just so you know, he answered the exact opposite of how a lot of people would answer that
Wow.
question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Controversial.
So the one he said is his favorite is the longest, most dense book of the whole series, something 900 so pages about. It has a lot of information, and some would say not as much action as the others. And a lot of people really like the third and fourth book.
Yeah. I don't like.
So are you
I think
saying this to be a contrarian, or
no. I don't. I don't mind the fourth book or the third book, but I just had to pick one. And also, I don't like one as much, just because like as you get older, it's like it gets a little cheesy. On one, but they're all good.
They're all good. And that's actually the problem I had with the early movies is that even though I think they did excellent casting, the kids were just did not know how to act in the first movies. Yeah. So the acting
gotta
is
remake
so
them.
terrible.
Remake those.
The casting was great, but they just had kids that like didn't know how to act yet.
Mm-hmm.
And the acting is just so bad. Yeah, which they did. They kind of did. But like I really feel like it affected the first few movies. And I also think, which somewhat makes sense because the tone of the books changed. I think because of swapping directors and things like that, like the movies, movie to movie, like to me, like don't feel like the tone of them is the same at all. Which again, maybe is intentional because the books, the tones get slightly darker, but like in the movies, I'm like, this doesn't even feel like the same world that they were in the earlier movies.
Yeah.
Kind of how when I watched Game of Thrones last season, I'm like, this feels like almost disconnected from everything else because like the pace of it and the tone of it just seemed different. That's kind of how the movies seem to me. Like
sometimes too.
Yes.
Where it's just like,
yes, where it's like, wait, is this even still the same series? Because they don't even seem to be doing anything the same way anymore.
Yeah.
But that is all. I mean, those are all my plot holes. I appreciate some of your points. I'm going to have to look back into the Yule.
I know you're going. I'll grab my book. I got it over here.
I'll have to look back into that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Yule. You might get like a Christmas reference, but they do celebrate Yule.
Which is what again?
Yule is the pagan festival
now
that
called
Christmas is derived from.
Okay. So yeah, maybe you got me there. Maybe you got
like
me
a Yule log. A Yule log.
Yeah.
That's from Yule.
Yuletide.
Yuletide.
Jared, I think this is really going to tell you, if anything, the Venn diagram of Chubaholics, Chubstep listeners, Harry Potter fans, and if there's even any intersection, which you'll be able to tell
That's on the feedback
very quickly based on feedback to this pod. If people say that was the most boring thing I've listened to, that will be like, all right, maybe those two don't intersect much. But if it's like, hey, more Potter, then you'll know like, oh, this is an untapped market.
That's true. Very true, Jack. I like it. I will say I've read all the books once, but it was when they first came out. So like, this is a good reminder that like, I don't remember any of this stuff. And so like, I'm going to have to revisit all this.
There is,
and we were diving into some minutia as well, right? This isn't something that, if you read the books once when you were 13, that not everything that would probably make a lot of sense.
Yeah. No,
which is why
I like the explanation. It helped.
Why it could very much alienate many listeners.
That's what we like to do. Alienate as much as we can. Nice. Well, thank you very much, Jack. We really appreciate it. Good debate. The winner is, I think, Jack overall, because all Steve had was the Yuletide thing.
I think Jack. I would agree.
If it was a debate, it was more of just a conversation, but for the argument of debate,
it was tied.
Yeah,
and there's nothing wrong with just having an intellectual conversation.
I think that's
Jared,
what
we were talking before. Yeah, everything is an argument these days. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with a couple men just having a discussion about Harry Potter and it not turning into a full out fight.
I would say
to fight about anything.
In this case, everybody's a winner except for the people that listen to the show that don't know Harry Potter that have now wasted their time.
It might get them into it. Everybody might get them into it.
But thank you again, Jack. Chubstep Jack, Steed, J-Rad. The show has ended. New episodes every Thursday. Be gone.
Now you know you got to go.
Peace. This is Yasin.